Welcome to the Scouting for Growth podcast, where we explore the intersection of technology, innovation, and business growth. I'm your host, Sabine VdL, and today I am thrilled to introduce you to an esteemed guest I have known now for many years. His name is Antony Elliott. Antony is a seasoned professional with over 2 decades of experience in the insurance industry and another 6 in Big 5 consultancies. And currently, he serves as the global lead for Digital R&D at Zurich Insurance. His role is pivotal in driving the exploration, exploitation, analysis, and early-stage adoption of disruptive technologies, shaping Zurich's digital transformation journey. Antony's work aims to deliver business value and collaboration-led results in terms of efficiency, effectiveness, and customer experience. With a background as a UK chartered accountant, Antony brings a unique blend of financial acumen and innovative thinking to his role. He is a proven project director, actually, adept at delivering results in a multicultural, multidimensional virtual team. Antony is a pioneer also of the agile and design thinking methodologies, leveraging these approaches to drive innovation at Zurich. Throughout his 18 years tenure at Zurich, Antony has consistently demonstrated his ability to apply business and technology to solve problems, making him a key player in the company's ongoing innovation initiatives. Antony's work at Zurich is characterized by his commitment to scouting for growth and nurturing innovation, as evidenced by his involvement in the Zurich Innovation Championship. Yes, his efforts in the championship have been instrumental in attracting and supporting the best young ventures, further solidifying Zurich's position as a leader in the InsurTech space. So today, we will dive into Antony's journey at Zurich, his approach to innovation, the strategic themes for Zurich Innovation Championship in 2024, and the impact of the championship on the overall group strategy. We will also discuss the future of InsurTech, the challenges of adopting disruptive technologies, and how Zurich balances the need for innovation with strong governance and financial management. Lastly, Antony will share his advice for young ventures looking to collaborate with Zurich or break into the InsurTech space. Indeed, it is important to understand how the industry works. So, whether you are a startup, scale-up, or grown-up in the tech space, this conversation promises to be insightful and inspiring. Antony will share insight on how he balances strategic thinking with tactical actions. Indeed, thinking big and then taking small steps to achieving the goal. So, make sure to stay tuned as we explore how to scout for growth and drive innovation in the InsurTech space. Welcome, Antony. Hi, Antony. Thank you so much for joining me on Scouting for Growth.
Hi, Sabine.
So, Antony, let's get started. Tell me, how did what did you do to become the global head of Digital R&D at Zurich Insurance? What is your path to getting that amazing role?
Okay, so look, I think I need to go back to 1999 when I was a fresh-faced young man of 21 years. And thinking about my first job, and I kind of look, and a lot of people fall into the insurance industry. I fell into the insurance industry. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I sat in the careers office of York University, and I was looking in these folders, physical folders, as to what kind of jobs you could do. And I saw a stat that something like 80% of British CEOs were chartered accountants. And I was like, okay, that seems like a pretty good a good qualification to have. You know, that sounds like a pretty interesting role to have. So I looked at the kind of the big five, right, and how I could apply to those guys. And I got a job with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I ticked the box for financial services, thinking banking, stripy suits, I'm going to be rich. Right. And when I got there into London in September 1999, they said, "Oh, you're in insurance." I was a bit like, "Well, wow, okay, insurance. What is that? Financial services?" And I guess that's how I got in there. And I realized, I really like insurance, right? And I like insurance because I think it plays a really important role in society, right? So I think actually how it can transfer risk and kind of share amongst the many and solve that protection gap is something which is really important. And I think the other thing I realized is there was just lots of things in insurance which kind of needed fixing, where it could be better, right? And that's really kind of why I've ended up staying, because I saw these sort of ways to improve it, and it's cool having a job where I can improve it. So yeah, that's what I'm still trying to do. And I joined Zurich in 2005, just over 18 years ago, making me feel really old. And I've done a bunch of stuff here, but I think over the last 14, 15 years in operations or tech and operations, really been looking at program director or program manager roles, business architect roles, enterprise architect roles, innovation roles, and then I run business transformation function covering kind of all of those things together. I got a bit of information governance in there as well, right? And all those bits together. Now it's back more focused on innovation, more focused on how we can prove how new technologies, new ideas can create value for Zurich. So that's really what I'm trying to do.
That's superb. And so do you still use a lot of your background as a chartered accountant on the way you implement innovation?
So I think some people listening to this will be like, what? That guy's a chartered accountant? Him? Really? So yes and no, right? So I think some of the sort of the fundamentals, some yes, right? And I guess a bit I think is really important is to understand how a company makes money, right? So to understand like what makes for a business, right? And how premiums are adjusted, how they're earned over time, you know, what happens with UPRs and with DAX, and really kind of actually the economics of insurance, right? So I think that is something which is very, very important to understand, right? Because if we want to make a successful business, it's not all about profit, but profit, you know, we're here for our for shareholders. So that's part of what we want to do. So that's something which I really do use, I think, almost every day in terms of understanding actually what makes our business tick. So that piece, I'm really glad I understand.
Critical. You know, when I started myself in insurance, I was doing financial models and identifying the source of value and creation and destruction in the industry. And I would say, you know, at the end of the day, it has to start with value creation, value delivery, and value measurements so that we can actually understand what the solution we implement can realize for us in our work. So, you know, very honored to know you for 7-8 years. And I've seen the evolution of the Zurich Innovation Championship across the past 2 years. And actually, I used to be a judge as well on the ZIG program many years back. So what are the strategic themes for 2024, Antony? What can we expect to be coming out for the new Zurich Innovation Championship 2024?
So, yeah, I mean, we're going to look at the areas which we think are priorities for business, but also areas where we think there are amazing startups out there to work with us. So the first one is about life and health, right? So it's looking how we can grow that business, how we can grow it profitably, how we can deliver value for our customers. Second up is commercial insurance, right? We know commercial insurance is a huge part of our business now. We're really kind of in that sort of great period. We've had a hard market. You know, we see it softening in some lines. We're really a lot of focus on underwriting effectiveness, but really how we can kind of leverage data to make some great decisions. You know, of course, there's some efficiency points in there as well. Third up, we have retail, but focused there on sort of P&C, which again, data's everywhere, right? I think data is a key part of that, but I think it's also looking how we can kind of work with our distribution partners, whether they're sort of existing distribution partners, novel distribution partners. How do we reach into kind of Generation Alpha, right? And find how they can actually understand risks and insurance solutions for them. And lastly, we've kind of got a digital simplification challenge. And this is really looking at kind of all of those digital enablers, which cut across all those other themes. Very focused on AI. Definitely, we expect a lot of AI in there, but also whether we can use gamification to kind of really kind of engage with customers, or if we can sort of be a bit more novel about how we engage around sort of social media. So those sort of things we see coming. We don't have a challenge around sustainability for the first time. That's not because we don't think sustainability is important. We still think it's super important, but we think that is just a fundamental for everything. So within all those four categories, we will also sort of have a sustainability lens. We'll have a customer lens, right? So I think for all of those, we're really going to make sure, literally, we might have a chair in the room with somebody sitting in saying, I've got the sustainability view, I've got the customer view. So they're really going to look across all four of those. Those are the four challenges for 2024.
And, I think personally that sustainability should be part of the purpose of any organization. So it should be embedded in everything we do, whether it's social, looking at balance between men and women and diversity, for instance, or how we take care of the underserved market. It should be around climate. And you have been so big around addressing climate and commercial. But also, I think now it's going to be more around the governance and responsibility when we start using artificial intelligence, for instance, where we have just 2 days ago, I gathered, a new regulation which came out. So when you look at the startups, the grown-ups, the growth ventures which are coming into the Zurich Innovation Championship, what are you expecting from them?
Well, so I think, what are we expecting? We're expecting fresh ideas. We're expecting, I suppose, fresh ways of working, but I think we get those fresh ways of working also in Zurich, but really kind of a dynamic way of working. We're really looking for a collaboration. Right? I think that's really important. We come in and we want to really kind of time box that engagement, so we have really kind of amazing results, which we can then use to show to the business to say, hey, look, this works, right? It's something which the customers love. It's something which we know we can kind of make work, whether from a tech or an operating model perspective. We think it's going to make economic sense, right? And we think it's got legs in terms of scaling, right? So I think we want someone who is passionate, enthusiastic, who's really going to kind of work with us in a very collaborative way in that short period to say, look, okay, now we've got some results which really move the needle.
And so for you, I've seen some amazing success stories, but it would be great if you could share with us some of your success stories, some of your experiences over the past year running the Zurich Innovation Championship, and how do they impact the overall business of Zurich?
Okay. I mean, look, so it's like one's children, right? So I love all my children the same, right? I don't have favorites, right? So I'm just going to mention a couple of examples, but I do love them all. But a couple of the examples, right? So one, I was just talking to them just now about a project. So one I think is really interesting is Spotter, right? And there we worked on them about this hypothesis to say we can inspect any building anywhere around the world, right? And I think actually that's something, because we insure something like 5 million buildings around the world, right? And actually that's something you can't go and look at every single building. Of course not. Not to mention the carbon footprint of doing it would be too much, right? So how can we do that in a kind of an automatic way using computer vision, right? So I think that's something we looked in the championship at properties in Mexico, the Netherlands, and Ireland, commercial properties and homes, right? And we're really looking to say, well, how can we use that in more places, especially for commercial insurance, where we do have a lot of exposures, and well looked after property is a different risk to one which is less well looked after, and to make sure we really understand what it is, right? So simple things like how many floors it's got, what it's made out of. Sometimes that information can be hard to come by, hard to validate, right? So I love how we take computer vision and overlay it with that external information and the prospect of being able to do it anywhere in the world. So that's one. If we stick on computer vision, another one I think has real potential is Physify. So again, from this year's championship, they again use computer vision, but to say how to do physiotherapy, right? And are you doing your physiotherapy? Are you doing it, right? And I know because I had a injured leg, wasn't so good at doing my physio all the time. But yeah, I think to actually say, are you doing it? Are you doing it correctly? Is it sort of sticky? So we can help people to be physically well, maybe with like the right kind of sort of posture, core strength, or to get back from injury kind of quickly in a really engaging way, right? So if doing a physio can be a bit boring, right? But actually be able to sort of see and get you that visual prompt to say, no, your elbows are wrong, your shoulders should be back, I think is really nice, yeah. Okay. And you want another one?
Yes, go for it.
Loads. I can talk evasively. The one, maybe one we've been working on in LATAM, right? Is Lisa, right? Lisa InsurTech, right? And we sometimes think, oh, these ones we work in our larger markets, maybe in EMEA, right? Actually, in Chile, we've shown really with Lisa that we can automate really kind of like a great volume of claims, right? And actually already implemented this year with run rate benefits. So that's something where I think we have really kind of great potential, right? So it isn't physifies very directly. You can see the customer impact, right? I think it can be behind the scenes as well, which can drive that kind of automation, that straight through processing. Can also be a customer benefit, right? Because they're not waiting for that kind of answer, but it can really be pushed through. So I think there's a lot there we can do. There's a lot of potential in terms of getting to a higher automation rate of claims as well.
That's fascinating because I think, when you start looking at the evolution now, you are implementing this initiative around 14 to 15 countries across a number of markets, right? And the impact on the Zurich Innovation Championship individuals as much as the startups is incredible. So I know I already asked you about the startups and what makes a great startup. But can you tell us what also are the key criteria you are looking for when you are scouting for those ventures? And how are you involving the team within Zurich to actually elevate the whole program and make it very exciting to participate to?
Yeah. So I think the first thing which is really important is we start by identifying either the problem or the opportunity, right? So there's so many exciting, startups out there. We could get a little bit swayed by sort of the great things, right? But rather say, let's make sure we know what are the opportunities, what are the problems we want to solve, right? So we start by really involving a lot of stakeholders, from our very, very most senior stakeholders, the exco and down. So that what are our priorities? Where do we see that, that view, that consolidated view across the group? Looking across the challenges I talked about before, right? So we have that sort of great view and the great sponsorship of those senior leaders who really do devote a lot of time to actually making sure that this is solving for things that they care about. We then use our network. We use various resources, various partners to be able to sort of actually find where are the best startups in those spaces, and to make sure that they're knowing about the Innovation Championship that they're applying. Right, we've just opened it when this goes on air to tell the world about the 2024 edition. So that they know, so that they apply. So we very much look forward to receiving the submissions from those great startups in those spaces. And also, of course, our business units, the countries around the group are doing that scouting. I think what's really important about the Innovation Championship is it's not Joel and my teams and sitting here in beautiful Zurich choosing them, right? I think it's really important that the guys in the countries say, okay, this is a startup we really believe can solve this important business priority for us, right? So they really kind of see it, they fall in love with it, they say, okay, this is my startup, this is our local winner, this is the one which then goes through to sort of the global final. And we say, right, okay, we're going to kind of put those up. It's about 50 startups at that stage. And it's more than just a startup, it's the initiative, it's a startup. And the country together saying, okay, why you should pick us. This is why our opportunity and this startup is something which we think can make beautiful music together. Right? So we put those again in front of those global leaders. We choose the top 10 to 12 startups, initiatives, and then we put them into this sort of validation phase, right? And I think this is not your kind of typical kind of InsurTech accelerator where we're saying, okay, how can we kind of work on their pitch and how we can sort of work on their model. It's really working together, looking at that desirability, feasibility, and viability, and how we can kind of prove that it can create business value for Zurich and of course for the startup as well, right? So we really focus on that in a very iterative way during that 3.5, 4 month validation phase. And then we kind of say, okay, here are the results. We tell the group, we tell the world, right? And then we really focus on saying, let's really make sure it's adopted. Let's really make sure we can scale this across the group to achieve the benefits which we all want.
And you said it's a 3 to 4 months process, and to achieve the right results, we have to actually iterate and go through that desirability, feasibility, and viability framework. So how do you involve the other part of the Zurich Group in that process? I was so fortunate last year, to meet the Make the Difference team, and seeing so much talent, really understanding the business of insurance across the value chain, accelerating the process. Tell us a little bit more around the support the venture can receive when they engage with Zurich.
Yeah. So when they engage, I mean, I think firstly we're going to have a dedicated team, a lead team from the country, right? So really it is a partnership with the country. We will then have support from our central team, right, to really kind of make sure that we're sort of driving this, whether that's design thinking experts, experts on human-centric design, on agile, on the cloud, or on AI, right? So, or of course, underwriting experts, claims experts, right? So to really make sure we pull the best of that talent which we have in Zurich. And then you mentioned, Make the Difference. And that's really our entrepreneurship program. So we think actually that can be a great fit with our entrepreneurship program. So working with those sort of entrepreneurs, so someone who can really kind of focus on how that can create value between the startup and Zurich, right? So we found that working with them in 2023 was a fantastic synergy, yeah.
Amazing people I've met through that process. So we are going to be in 2024. The world of InsurTech is evolving. I was looking at some numbers, Antony, from an investment viewpoint, we are not going to do as well as 2021 or 2022, right? Startups are going to receive a fraction of the investment they have received in past year. But from you, what are, for you, the emerging technology, the emerging trends we need to pay attention to in 2024 and beyond? I know you already talked about the themes, but I would like for you to talk about emerging technology.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think this year there was, out of the 12, it was 11, maybe 12, right, who had AI as part of it, right? So we think that's going to carry on, right? And I expect that we really will see some generative AI native startups really kind of coming through in this year's championship. And I think there's going to be amazing value which they can create. So look, I think that's not even a prediction, it's just a sort of certainty, right? So we can kind of bet our house on that one. But the other one for me, right, and I suppose I thought this for a while, but I see huge potential in the Internet of Things and insurance, right? And it's something which I think we perhaps haven't quite got to that point where it's really the tipping point of it's really kind of delivering value, right? I'd love to see some startups coming in that space, whether that's around commercial insurance, whether it's around more personalized insurance. But I think actually taking sensor data to understand the thing which we are insuring, to offer risk insights to the customer and to us as underwriters, but also to help either prevent the claim happening or to know about the claim really soon, is something where there just is huge potential, right? So that can be a traditional insurance product, it can be a more parametric insurance product, it could be more of a dynamic insurance product, right? But I really see that something which will come in the future, and would love to see a startup in that space as a winner.
So we often talk about data being the oil of everything, and in insurance we have a lot of data. But at the same time, you already mentioned generative AI, you mentioned Internet of Things. What do you think we just need to watch out for when we start looking at technology and disruption? And partly for you, when you evaluate the companies coming through the program, what are the challenges you are going to look for? What are the things you are going to pay close attention to as well?
So I guess we're looking to find a lot of it's about people, right? So we want to make sure we feel that it's the right people, you have that right connection, you've got the right team, right? So I think that is definitely important to us, right? I think one thing there's a certain, let's say, hygiene level when it comes to things like, security, right? And we don't necessarily expect someone to have the absolute bulletproof security which you'll expect as a company matures, but there's a certain security posture which we need to have to start with, and then particularly if you're dealing with any kind of personal data, right? So I think there's a certain hygiene level in terms of architecture and security, which are just table stakes. Say, look, this has got to be good enough for a solution which we can even start to work with. But I don't think we often get to the stage where that's not there, right? But it is there, and certainly it's something which we need to take a look at and make sure it's in the right situation. And I think it's having that right focus, right? So we definitely want a team who's going to come in and really focus and deliver in that validation phase.
Well, what I liked and I've seen is, you have amazing people with expertise across all those different areas, and they are always there to help the ventures. Now, when we look at, financial management, let's not forget your chartered accountant and governance. So how does innovation plays with this within that frame, actually, at Zurich? Governance, financial management, innovation. How do you combine all three to achieve the right outcome for the group?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I talk about sort of like the minimum viable lots of things, right? So I think we should be looking at the minimal viable governance, which look, to be honest, that can be a challenge, right? Because we're in a business to manage risk, so we have a very strong discipline around that. Right, but certainly what we look to do is make sure we have that minimal viable governance, which as we get to having a solution which can scale across the group and cover millions and millions of customers, obviously we will need to make sure that governance is a little bit stronger. But if we want to really validate it with the first 50 customers and to prove it can work, the amount of governance you need is less, right? So really that's a lot of what my job is to be making sure that we aren't kind of having too much of that governance up front, and we can kind of gradually raise the bar as we prove it, as we start to scale it, right? So that's something where we try and involve the right people, right? So bringing that kind of minimal viable governance approach, and that's both in the countries and of course in the center here, right? And I think that sort of financial side of things as well. It's really then making sure that we think about it from a business case perspective, right? So ultimately, our CFO George wants to see things which are kind of making financial sense. So I do really believe that actually we can have things which drive customer value, which can drive economic value for us, which can also do the right thing by society and the world, right? So I think getting to all those three things is absolutely what we can do. They can go together, but we need to make sure we do understand like the economics of it is and how it's going to start to add value as it scales.
So let's go for some advice now to those young ventures who are going to knock on the Zurich Innovation Championship door to collaborate with your team. What advice would you give them to be considered for 2024 Zurich Innovation Championship?
Advice would I have for them, right? So I think I would advise them to be very clear on what their value proposition is, right? And to sort of make sure that they have that elevator pitch, right? When we do these pitch days, sometimes people really don't hit that kind of 3-minute mark, and we've got super senior people's time. They're about to go off to a board meeting, and we really have to hit to that sort of 3-5 minute pitch, whatever we've allowed, right? And then get into the Q&A, right? So being concise, being kind of clear on what you're actually putting across. You can have the best technology in the world, but if you can't articulate it in a kind of a short period of time, it's very difficult for people to understand that, right? So I think kind of having that clear view of what it is really important, right? I think then to be bold, right? But I think it's really important to think about the different sort of stakeholders. So we always want to make sure we understand that what is that kind of customer impact, right? So to make sure it's kind of clear and to thought through from the end customer, but the stakeholders of whether that's the underwriter or the claims guys as well, to sort of look through those personas and to sort of have empathize with those is something which is also important. But that really helps us to then sort of see, well, where can that value be? And look, of course, it's important to understand why this is different from the competition, right? And not so much about the technology, but to say, well, okay, look, this is what it's going to do and why the technology will move a needle. We've got great guys who will deep dive into the technology, but I think it's really important to say, look, this is what it's going to do. This is a value it can create.
Very important reminder, right? We know about the tech, we know about the product. It's all about the value proposition. Be able to be concise when actually interacting with executives, but also remembering that we don't always have just one stakeholder. We are going to serve a customer. We may serve a corporation or a user, which might be a consumer. But then at the end of the day, we also have an internal customer, which you said maybe the claim manager, the underwriter, and so on and so forth. So, Antony, if people wanted to apply to the Zurich Innovation Championship, what should they do? Where should they go?
Well, they should start by going to our website. I think it's www.zurich.com/ZIC. Right, it's quite easy to remember, or just put into Google, right? Zurich Innovation Championship, you find it there. Look, and we've tried to really make the application really straightforward, right? So we work with F6S because many startups are on there, and really to sort of say, look, this is something which we think people can apply in, 10 minutes in a coffee break, right? So really just to understand the key bits we need to know. You can always ask for more information, right? So go in, find it there, learn about the challenges, hit apply, and we're really looking forward to hearing from everyone.
So my last word would be growth ventures, investors. Just as you are listening to this discussion, make sure to apply to the Zurich Innovation Championship early January, February.
14th of February we'll be closing this year.
Okay, thank you very much, Antony. Antony, thank you so much for joining me on Scouting for Growth.
Thank you, Sabine.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scouting for Growth. Please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a 5-star rating. Your rating is so valuable. I review all of them, and my team help me adapt content to meet your needs. Also, connect with me on my preferred channels. I am a B2B growth expert, so you will find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads, and X as well as Blue Sky. All information available below. Until next, keep scouting for growth.